What's up, guys? Shirley here, and this is my ARMS commentary guide for the Jailer on Mythic. This was recorded right before all the Giga nerfs came in, however, but I still think it's a useful, resource and tool. So we're going to take a look at this. Basically, the only thing that'll be different is the end of the fight got Giga nerfed, and it's kind of a joke now. But jumping right into the poll here, there's a ton of positionings and timings for ARMS to look at and think about, so I'm going to do my best to be as fast as possible with all these things. Right off the bat, using our CDs here, find a position for yourself around the boss throughout the entire fight and repeat that position every single time. That way people are used to you standing there. We're going to go ahead and gate out for the first oppression thing there. And you can stay in melee range till about 3/4 of the way through the cast before you use that gate. I was saving my first Blade Storm for this right here, the first tank combo that I'm going to be soaking, and we Blade Storm it as Warrior because it makes us immune to the knockback. I believe they removed that, though, so you might not even need to worry about that, but you do want to end up saving Blade Storm later for other cooldown timings regardless. So right here, I'm going to stand in this exact same spot by this hexagon as those Torment circles go out every single time. That way people know that's where I'm going to be. Speaking of which, the second Colossus Smash or Warbreaker window that comes up right there, right before those go out, I try my best to actually clip the Jailer with that, even though we're immediately running off range. And that's just to get the cooldown running and rotating, because we're going to want it back at a very specific point coming up later. We're going to back up here just a little bit to help soak the Azerite heal line, and then everybody's going to rotate around, or they have a habit to rotating around the boss to get to the next bomb sets. But I'm going to stay on this side because there's a lot less traffic and people over here, just so we're not clipping anybody with that Torment Circle. And then I'm going to immediately rotate around this side for the Relentless Domination cast. We're going to line of sight at the last second here, and then spread out to heal this line here. And as soon as we get 3 stacks of the buff, I'm going to try my best every single time to leap over to help soak that next tank spot there. And you can use the knockback, or you could beforehand, to help knock yourself towards the bomb circles if you ended up getting a bomb there. Luckily, I didn't. It's a little bit risky, though, because those back holes are still open, so, I like to get bounced the other direction and ask for, like, a Tiger's Lust or something to get me over there if I end up having to run far. But otherwise, we're going to run around the front of the boss back there for that other Torment Circle. I'm going to get a bomb here. Luckily, it's one of the close ones, so I can get some decent uptime before I have to jump in the pit there. And angling myself backwards so I get bounced back towards the boss. You usually can charge back the boss every single time you get a bomb, so you can get a little bit of free rage that way as the fight goes on. But it's not a big deal. Sometimes when he's next to a pillar, it's got a line of sight bug and doesn't let you do that. Excuse me. And then we're going to spread out once again here for this Torment cast, and he's going to do the Relentless Domination one more time. I'm going to take the backside here. It's usually a little bit safer when we spread out for these lines. There's a nice little spot here. Those lines are usually a little bit bigger of a hitbox than what they look like, so you definitely don't want to cut it too close. As our next set of CDs come up into Phase 2 now for this part, I'm saving everything, holding on to everything right here, and that's for the first set of mind controls that go out right here. We're going to stack up underneath the boss, close to the front, and this is where we're going to use all my cooldowns, Warbreaker, Spear, all that stuff. Speaking of which, you do really want to play Kyrian for this fight. That way you can spear people. That way they're not getting, too close to the edge if things go wrong. Luckily, if, everything goes according to plan, it's not really a big deal. But Spear is really good for that, keeping everybody there. We're going to rotate up around towards the front of the boss here during the 2 heal lines on either side, and that's just to make sure that we're not getting a link towards melee and killing everyone. Speaking of which, during this phase, when he casts the Decimators that happen right there, if you go to the max melee range of his hitbox and jump, actually, right as it goes off, it'll boop you back a little bit further than normal, and you can use that to charge back and get some free rage. Obviously, you don't want to do that if you're close to a hole or the edge of the room or something, but it's just something you can min-max later on. Luckily, as these next set of mind controls go out here, we're just going to have Spear of Bastion and Warbreaker and Sweeping Strikes up for that. Go ahead and use that on all those people. I didn't get it, luckily, so big part of your damage during this phase is going to be from, not getting the mind control, of course. We're going to walk up in front of him there for that next Decimator knockback, And make sure you're not in the chain line itself, because that'll still kill you. And as these next set go out, I'm going to move towards the 7 o'clock position around him, facing out away if you're looking at it like a clock. Not that it matters, you know, you'll have your own place for your own kill, but for us, I wanted to be very consistent in the same spot every single time. And this overlap here is pretty rough, but luckily I got all my cooldowns up for this one, and we're going to go ahead and Bladestorm away and trying to leave that spot underneath the boss open at all times. He does the Decimator knockback during that Mind Control set, and that's why we want Bladestorm to be up for that set in particular. That way we can just immune that knockback and not have to worry about getting knocked into a hole or something. Speaking of which, if you get the Mind Control like at the very start on the very first set and you have all your cooldowns up, honestly, I would opt to just use all my cooldowns right there and then, even though it's kind of a waste not hitting everybody with them, just so they line up again later for that particularly bad overlap right there. That way you make sure that you're not just firing Bladestorm on the next set and then throwing off all your cooldown timings. We're going to move up here for the next Decimator knockback. There's 2 holes there, so I didn't want to, you know, risk charging back on the boss or anything. It's a lot safer usually just to move up. And as this next set of cooldowns come up, it's a little bit delayed for these mind controls. We're just kind of spreading out randomly here because this one's really bad. Luckily, there was only a couple of people that got mind controlled here. I think our third was a shaman. We're going to get out this mage and then grip in our warlock friend here and get him out as well. And we got him right at the edge there, and this is going to stun us and go into Phase 3. And Phase 3 is a lot of movement, and as is Phase 4, but we're going to start the phase by rotating around the room over to the side here so we can help bait the first knockback, or at least the range players are going to be baiting this first knockback. I'm just going to get as much uptime on the boss here as we can in between these 2 debris circles, I think is what it's called, the stuff. We're going to get knocked away from that, and I'm just going to hit the boss here as long as I can before we all stack up in front of this Azerite pool heal and soak the Desolation cast. And this is the only one that we soak these days, I believe. And I'm going to move up to the front here just to make sure that Azerite chain heal, you know, ends up clipping with everyone. And right here as the lines, the little missiles come out from Azeroth, really should face the boss there, but there wasn't that many, so it wasn't that big of a deal. We're going to spread out here for the Torments going off, which spawns all of our adds, and this is what we were saving all of our cooldowns for during this phase, or at the start of this phase, which is just to burn all these things, of course. And as the Decimator comes back, you really want to be in between these 2 holes there, that way you're not getting knocked in one of them, of course. And good on a range for baiting that in the correct position there. I'm going to get chains on me here. This is all part of the Master's plan. And we're going to spread out to help soak the healing absorb here in the, what do you call it, the Venn diagram thing. And then we're going to run all the way to the other side of the room. That way we can stack up our Azerite healing buff one more time to 6, just to refresh that damage buff we're getting from it. We aren't linking it to Azeroth the healer, though, at this point. And then I'm going to break the chain there. I did rally during that movements phase as well, I wanted to point out, just so we got a little bit more of a cushion. Our range are going to bait the Defile behind that Azerite line, which is great. And then right here, as he casts the last Desolation, that's when we're going to pop Bloodlust and make sure that we push into the Phase 4. He's going to do his Life Shield here. Now, this thing got nerfed into the ground, so it explodes really fast. However, as long as your DPS isn't like immediately breaking it and you can get off the cast, I would say it's worth casting Shattering Throw during that window because it does do increased damage to the absorption shield. I'm going to get the first bomb here. We doubled up on with one of our buddies there. Not a big deal during the last phase. I used Ignore Pain there. Speaking of which, you can reflect just to help mitigate a ton of damage throughout the entire fight when all the Desolations go out, and various mechanics. Pretty much everything in this fight, for us anyway, is going to do magic damage, so you can, you know, help reflect and mitigate some of that. As we get down to the wire here, we're going to use our last set of cooldowns, and it's just burning everything on CD at this point. I do back off the boss here just for a second for these last Desolation things, because they spawn Defiles now, and I wanted to make sure that none of that was going to be close to the boss there. But with that, Jailer on Mythic goes down, and I'm sure now it'll be a lot easier. We have 3 weeks left, I want to say. to get your cutting edge and ahead of the curve achievements before Season 4. So good luck with that, everyone. If you have any questions, especially now that the timings might be a little bit different after the nerfs, feel free to leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.